Oh, yeah. You know what time it is. No, it's not Ash Wednesday. Today's Thursday. And that's assuming I get it up today. Could be Friday. You might be watching this weeks later. I don't know. So I don't know what time it is. Maybe you know what time it is, but I don't. But anyways, it's that time. Now, normally, I give myself a nice In-N-Out double-double. That was my Ash Wednesday thing. What can I say? I'm not doing that anymore. No, it's not that I'm not doing that anymore. Today's Thursday. Got to mix it up. I don't just love In-N-Out. I do love In-N-Out. I don't just love In-N-Out. I also, one of my big loves is Mexican food. And so I got myself some prime Mexican food. It's not even one of the best shops, but it's the one that's down the street from me. And yeah. You're like, what is that? That is rolled tacos, my friend. Also known as taquitos. For you people that live outside of Southern California. No one in Southern California calls them taquitos. They're rolled tacos. And they're fantastic. And you gotta get lots of salsa to go with them. And there you go. So I haven't made a video in a long time. Because I do the Monday videos with RDV. So if you watch those late night comics, we talk about comics. Forget what we're talking about this Monday. We're covering like new books. Check with us. It's Monday night, late night. You can catch the after stream. And there you go. So I'm going to chow down on this. And then we'll get to what comics I got. Got some good ones. I spent like almost $50 at the shop today. I'm like, what? And I had to put a book back. So we'll talk about that later. If I remember. All right. I interrupt my Division 2 playing. Such a great game. If you haven't played this, I recently got a new Xbox. It's over there. Oh, there's my Mountain Dew. I've been sucked in on this, but we're not here to talk about video games. We're here to talk about comics. Yikes! I spent more on comics. You can get this video game, which is amazing, for about $15 with the expansion. Or you could pay $42 on comics. Now, I know to some people, $42 for comics is nothing. And that's great if that is the case for you. That's a lot for me. And it's a lot, period, for what really. I mean, it's a lot. $42 for comics, geez. But whatever. We're here. We love comics. You love comics. If you're watching my shitty channel, you must love comics. So, there we go. This is a comic haul. I haven't done one of these in a while, but let me shed some light on the subject. There we go. This is what I bought today at the comic book store. First on the list is Nightclub by Mark Millar. Some people call him Mark Millar, myself included, just so you know who you're talking about. There's a lot of Millars in comics, but it is Millar. And Juanon Ramirez is a guy I wasn't familiar with. Now, I pretty much get most Mark Millar comics these days because he's just one of my favorite writers. He's not the best writer in comics. He's just a really fun writer. He's a very consistent writer, and I like his voice. I would never try to tell someone like, oh, you're going to get Shakespeare out of this. But if you like modern, like if you like mainstream comics, if you like that that sort of style, you're not trying to get the most artistic, pretentious crap, then Mark Millar is going to be your boy. But here's the real thing that should draw your attention. Look at that. $1.99. This comic, this is not a cheap comic in production. This isn't done with newsprint, although I'm not really against newsprint comics. This comic's production value is, I would say, better than your typical Marvel comic, maybe equivalent to a DC comic. It's $1.99. Features a writer who's in the top 10 percentile of writers in the industry today. And I don't know this guy, but you can judge art for yourself. The art on the cover is the art in the interior, which I respect. It's not the best artist. Usually Mark Millar gets the best, but hey, it's $1.99. I can't emphasize this enough. Now, Mark, for those of you who don't know, Mark's doing this comic as an experiment. He thinks comics are too expensive, to which I'm like, yay, Mark. He's on our side. He doesn't even have to do comics for money. He sold his business to Netflix, and Netflix basically pays him to run his comic, or to run Miller World, to make TVs and movies. He only does comics because he loves comics. He doesn't do it for money. In fact, I don't think he makes any money. Maybe that's why he's able to get $1.99. I don't know. But he wants to bring comic prices down, or at the very least stop them from escalating like they are. And so he's doing this book with the hopes that if it sells well, it'll show the rest of the industry, hey, people are interested in cheap comics. But that means you have to buy the book, okay? If every person who bought comics added this comic to their poll, just for the time, it's only a 6-issue miniseries, I'm pretty sure. For $1.99, you'd pay $1.99 a month. Remember, if you were the person snickering at me about $42, that's not much, then you should be able to afford $1.99. Even if you're like, I'm not interested in nightclub or what, like, give it a shot. It's $1.99. Support it. Because if every person in the comic that buy comics added this to their poll, this would be the #1 comic by far. And DC and Marvel and all the other guys would have to wake up and be like, you know, I don't think that's going to happen. Surprisingly enough, people would rather pay $4.99 for a shitty DC title written by Megan Fitzmartin than something good. Now, I'm not going to fool you and tell you that this is Mark Millar's best work he's ever done. It's not. But it's fun. It is written towards a younger generation. I talked about this on RDV stream, the Geeky Puppets. But it's fun. I definitely feel like I get my $1.99 worth. I'm enjoying it. And I recommend you pick it up and support it too. It's cheap. It costs you next to nothing. Speaking of Mark Millar, the comic that's super hot right now and is probably selling better if I had to guess, even though it's twice as much, is Nemesis Reloaded. People would rather spend more money. Interesting point of fact, I'm going to get off a side tangent and trivia. You guys know what hot dogs are, right? Of course you do. Everyone knows if you're American, you know what a hot dog is. It's an American thing, right? Wrong. It comes from our friends over across the ocean, and originally they were Frankfurters. Now, I might be botching this a little bit, but I watched a History Channel thing about this, and I found it fascinating. Back in the day, in the early days when hot dogs were kind of a new thing, there was a hot dog company, and I can't remember the name of it, and they were selling as Frankfurters, and they were selling like cheap. No, they weren't selling it. Someone else was selling them really cheap, like a nickel hot dogs or whatever, and they just weren't selling. People were like, not interested. This company, and I can't remember the name, opened up a restaurant across the street, called them Frankfurters or whatever, and sold them for like 15 cents a piece or something, which sounds super cheap to us, but that's like 3 times as much, right? Back, and this is like in the early 1900s or the late 1800s, I forget, it was way back when. And then they started selling like hotcakes. Because people feel when you pay more for something that it has more value, that it's worth something more, that it's better. There's a very real human psychology to paying more for things that makes you feel like you're getting a better product. Even though, I agree it's not the same artist, right? But this is twice as much, this is going to sell more. But what are you going to do? So I just find that very interesting. I do like this one a little better. I'm not going to lie. However, I don't like it twice as much as this, right? This is a close second than this. This is $1.99. If I had to, like, just saying. So Nemesis Reloaded, really interesting. Jorge Jimenez, one of the best in the business. I don't really like his new style that he's been getting since being on Batman. I really prefer his Justice League and Super Son style, which is where I discovered him. His style on Batman, whatever, but he's still a fantastic artist. He's one of my favorites. And Nemesis Reloaded is a ton of fun. It's not a sequel. That's another thing, by the way, for those of you who don't know. I thought this was going to be a sequel. It's not. It's a reboot. It's almost kind of like what what DC did back in the Silver Age, when they sort of just like rebooted their characters and like reinvented them and just relaunched their characters. Some of them with new identities, you know, like Flash. There was a new Flash, like Barry Allen became the Flash, and then the Green Lantern was redone. Some of them you'd like that, but then like, anyways, I'm not going to get in the weeds here because Breen's going to be like, oh, Ash is talking out of his, knowledge base, which is true. I don't. But if Breen was on my channel, Breen, this is why I need you. He could talk to you more about the comic history. But anyways, this is a reboot of sorts, and he talks about that in the book, why he did this. So very interesting. You don't have to read the old one at all to jump in on this. It's like him starting over with the character. So I find that fascinating. The old one is definitely worth a read, though, and it's got Steve McNiven art, and it's fantastic. Moving along. Erratic. We covered this on the Late Night Comics last episode, Monday night. We talked about this. This is one of the best comics on the shelf. I love Erratic. I skipped it because it has a stupid name originally, the original series. I was like, Erratic? What, AWA? What the hell? And then everyone was going ape shit about the comic, and I was like, really? Really? And like, Purchase channel, he's like, oh, it's the best comic. And I was like, oh. And look, I'm a very opinionated guy. I have my prejudices, and I'm usually pretty good, to be honest, of picking out what I think is going to be good and what's going to be bad based on my knowledge of who creators are and things like that. But this was one of the ones I didn't know. I tried Erratic and I fell in love. This book, this one and the original, the Erratic in general, Kari Andrews writes and draws, to me captures what made me fall in love with Spider-Man back in the 80s when I discovered Spider-Man. I didn't discover Spider-Man in the 80s. He had a TV show, I knew, but in the comics. And I didn't think I liked Spider-Man too. Same thing. I was like, I started reading Spider-Man. This comic is so whimsical and charming, and it captures like the teenage sort of like coming of age, the loss of innocence, dealing with that awkwardness of like becoming an adult type thing. It just all of that Spider-Man. Plus, it has the humor. The art is just so fitting for this book. I love this book. Like, I could just sit there and just read through it because I love the character banter and dialogue. Bendis wishes he could write character banter like this. It's fascinating. I've talked about this at breadth. You can get the original. The original series is collected in trade. It's only $9.99 for the price of one DC Valentine's special. You could get the whole Erratic trade paperback, and it's fantastic. And I assure you, if you like comics, even in the realm of Spider-Man, then you're going to love this. And I can't speak highly enough about some of my favorites. I went and tracked down the whole series, the original series. Had to get all the back issues, found them on eBay, just because I loved it so much. And now I'm committed. If Kari Andrews is going to keep doing Erratic, I'm going to keep buying it. Blade Runner 2039. Now I'm going to admit, this is issue 3. I haven't read a single issue of 2039. I'm buying it. I didn't even know this was coming out till last minute. I'm buying it because I bought the first 2 series. And there was 2019, 2029, 2039. You see what they do there? They're real clever. But 2029 wasn't as good as 2019. 2019 was fan-freaking-tastic. And I normally am not a person to buy licensed comics because, in my opinion, it's like, okay, you got a really great movie, potentially by great writers that are writing the movie, and then you do spin-off comics, then it's some schleppy comic writer who's not nearly as good to write movies. To me, I don't like to have the things that I like be represented poorly. So I usually don't get into the like I was a huge fan of Star Wars, growing up. It's one of my biggest things. I love Star Trek too. I didn't read Star Trek novels or Star Wars novels. I did read some Star Wars novels. That was a little different because Star Wars was dead and gone, and they released like novels. It was like, that was the only thing we're going to get. I was so starved for Star Wars. But then I quickly fell out of them because they weren't as good. They just simply weren't. And so when Blade Runner came out, I was like, I don't know, Blade Runner. But Wes over at Thinking Critical, I was on the Comics Aficionados at the time, and he was like, this is the best comic on the shelves. And I was like, no way. No way that some Titan Comics is doing a Blade Runner comic but sure enough, the guy who was writing it, who's not here, is not one of these guys, he was the screenwriter for Blade Runner 2049. So it was fantastic. It really, really was. Anyways, also, I'm a big fan of Sid Mead, who did the art design for the movie and lots of other movies. And so I get all the Sid Mead covers. It's fun to collect that. So there you go, Blade Runner. I'm hoping this is good. I just haven't dived into it. I'm just collecting it because I got the first two. Extreme X-Men. I can't believe I'm buying a Marvel comic. But if you know me and what I've talked about, if you know me and talk about X-Men at all, X-Men is the reason I'm into comics. When I got into comics, the first comic I ever bought was, I don't even remember when. You can look up the date, I guess. It was X-Men 162 with the cover of Wolverine turning into a brood on the cover. I think I was like 9 years old or something. I had no idea. Picked it up. The power of a cover, right? Picked it up, read it. Whatever. I don't even remember. I knew that I had it, but I don't really remember that time in my life. It's one of those things. Years later, I would be visiting my grandparents. Again, this is why I bought the first one. Went to a drugstore or whatever, and they had X-Men 210 and 211 on the newsstand. And you may be aware, like, I think it's 210 is the cover. One of those two is the cover where it shows all the X-Men standing there. It's like, go ahead, mess with us, make our day. Now, Dirty Harry was real big back in that time. And as just turning into a teenager, little Ash, it was just like, I was like that little edgy, like, yeah, make my day. That was like this, and I saw that cover and it was just badass. And something stuck out to me. And so I picked up X-Men. And then X-Men, I instantly fell in love. And I told myself, I'm going to collect comics, because I was now old enough to realize that collecting comics was a thing. I found a comic book store about a mile away from my house I could ride my bike to, and I started buying X-Men from then on. And every month, buying an issue, looking through the back issues and going backwards, so getting like 209, 208, and just diving in. And Chris Claremont and X-Men became why I loved comics. Like I loved X-Men. So fast forward to today, all these years later, Chris Claremont is doing an X-Men book. I didn't get the original Extreme X-Men. I wasn't actually back into comics at that point. But even if I was, I would have been rolling my eyes, because I'm not into I just want classic X-Men. But when this came out, I was like, Chris Claremont is doing an X-Men comic and you're not going to get it. So I was like, well, at least I can do is try it. So I have. And it's fun. It's not as good as the X-Men of yesteryear. I didn't expect it to be, but it's fun. And it really does. Chris Claremont's writing style is so, there's such like a signature style to it. Like, I feel like, I'm like, oh, it's so Chris Claremont-y, like, and if you know what I'm talking about. But it's a fun comic. It's not the best comic, but for Marvel, easily top 5 percentile of Marvel comics today. Not that that's saying anything, but I had to get this cover. That's another thing too. I love these nostalgic covers. Of course, this one is a ripoff of the Giant Size X-Men #1, and I just think that's really cool. The Extreme X-Men charging out of the all new, all different X-Men. So neat cover. There's my nostalgia. You don't care. Moving on. Now, the comic that got me back into comics, to buying physical comics again, Batman: The White Knight. This is Beyond the White Knight. It's the 3rd series. Sean Gordon Murphy is one of the creators I'm most excited about. I said this way back in the day when I started my channel, started talking about this book. I have not been as excited about a writer-artist creator since I discovered Frank Miller. Sean Gordon Murphy is not Frank Miller. I'm not trying to say that, but he does have talent. I discovered Frank Miller through Batman, Sean Gordon Murphy through Batman. He has a different vision and different mindset clearly than Frank does, but it's fun. And there's people who've been criticizing Curse of the White Knight or what have you. I happen to love Curse of the White Knight, done some videos on it. I urge you to check those out. I really like the video I did on issues 4 and 5 that really break down the book and explain like what is so great about it. So this is a fantastic book. I don't really care about Batman Beyond. You know me, I'm not a big legacy guy, but I'm all in on White Knight. Like, White Knight is just this Elseworlds playground that doesn't have to fit. Like, I don't care. The things he's doing, people are like, oh, Batman wouldn't do this. But it's like, this is not Batman. It's the White Knight. It's like, yes, I know it says Batman, but you know what I'm saying. It's not, this is a experimental what if kind of Elseworlds-y, like, just roll with it. Like, and that's what I do. I just shut my brain off and pretend that Batman doesn't actually exist and this is just its own thing. And I have a ton of fun. And I'm really enjoying Batman Beyond. Maybe this will be a gateway for me to discover the continuity. But I'll probably go read the continuity Batman Beyond and be like, nah, I wish it was like this. So there you go. And I had to get the E cover because it's the only time I've seen Sean Gore Murphy draw Superman. So Superman and Batman, just really cool. Yeah, I love this design too with the cape is actually the background. That's really cool. Yeah, it really speaks to me. Speaking of speaking to me and Batman and Frank Miller and The Dark Knight, we got Saga of a Doomed Universe. Now, this is a book I wanted to talk about, but this comic company, CEX, no one's ever heard of these guys. Yeah, look at that price, $8.99. This is one of the variant covers. I don't do variant covers, but the A covers on this were all they didn't suck, but they're just not interesting. The variant covers were all homages to Marvel and DC classic books. Obviously, this one is, I believe this is actually The Dark Knight Strikes Again, the sequel that everyone hates that I love. But yeah, I'm a sucker for that. So this book was supposed to come out like months ago. Oh, actually, it did come out months ago, but mine was damaged. So I was like, I'm not paying. If I'm paying $8.99 for a book, it better be mint. So they sent it back, and I wasn't sure if I was going to get another one, which I was really pissed off because I got the first issue and I already paid $8.99. But this one finally came in, and along with the new issue, which just came out. So I get both, and you can see the homage here. Death Captain Marvel. Really cool. This comic is hard to describe. This is a book I wish Eric Breen would read. And also, this $8.99, but it's thick. These, I don't know if I can see. They're like 70 pages. So, and it's prestige bound. And they're super high quality. So kudos to CEX. I feel like you could have just done a 6-issue miniseries, but whatever. These are really, really nicely done, and they're not available digitally. I'm not sure if this will be adapted into a trade because it's such a small press. So it's one of those things that I just bit the bullet on. And I do like owning, or when I'm, as a collector, I like having neat and unusual books. And something about this series grabbed me. And Saga of a Doomed Universe, it's a very metatextual comic. I've only read the first issue, and it's a little bit fourth wall breaking, not in a goofy way. It's not like a Deadpool. It's not a silly book, but in a way, almost like that. This universe is like recognizably like under the control of a creator. That's the comic, and this whole the destruction of the universe. This villain gets these powers, and the world is very much like a Marvel-like universe, and he gets this ultimate power, and he's going to kill everybody. It's really hard to describe, but like I said, there's a lot of metatextual like reference to comic books in general and the industry and just how things were done. I'd be very curious to hear Eric Breen's take on this. He would probably know more, because he's much more well versed, especially in the older era of Marvel and DC, and just to see what I'm missing. But this is a fun book. It's a little bit dark. It's a lot about the villain kind of winning, murdering all the heroes. It has in that sense, it has a little Watchmen-esque take to it. I don't really want to compare it to Watchmen though, but it's very interesting. The art is kind of like what you see on the cover. It's not, you know, your most beautiful art, but it feels very classic. This feels like it would have been in the Silver or Bronze Age comics. And I absolutely enjoyed the hell out of it. It uses a lot of the old techniques of like Zipatone and things like that. Really, really cool. Like I said, I'm looking forward to reading the next 2 issues and probably understanding it more, because again, I only got the first issue. You know, so maybe there's, you know, when you only read the first chapter of a book, you're not going to understand the whole thing. Yeah, and it takes place in '84, so it's very 80s. You know what I'm saying? There's like nostalgia. It's very self-aware of what it's trying to do. So, anyways, these are my books. There was the C cover of Beyond the White Knight that I left at the store because I was like, I'm not sure if I want to buy 3 covers, but I got not the C cover, the B cover. I got the A and B cover of all the other issues, so my OCD, I'm like, do I just have an E cover instead? So I left it there. There's also Blade Runner 2039 #1 is in my bin. I still have yet to pick it up because they're still trying to find this Sid Meier cover. They picked, I told them I wanted the Sid Meier cover, there's another cover that actually has a picture, like a photograph of Sid Meier. Sorry, not Sid Meier. That's a video game maker. Sid Mead. It has a picture of Sid Mead, and they're like, oh, I thought you wanted the Sid Mead cover. I'm like, I do. The Sid Mead art cover. I didn't realize. Anyways, so that's... we'll keep it in my box in case you can't find it. I don't know. But she's trying to track, the lady at the store, she's trying to track it down. Here's my books. You tell me what you think is best. It's an interesting pull. It's the biggest I've had in a while. I think next week I've got a book or no, I don't know. But after this, man, there's not many books for 40-something bucks, but these 2 together were like $18 just to get. And these 2... $10 for just basically a single issue twice. Comics are getting too expensive, man. So thank you, Mark Millar. This is the gem right here. Yeah, look at that. Look at that cute face. Look at that. Don't you want to just give him a big old hug and kiss? No, I haven't been drinking. So hopefully you had a good comic book day. Hopefully you're reading good comics. Let me know down below what comics you're into, what's striking your fancy. What you're excited for is upcoming. Mark Millar has got some new books coming out. I urge you to check them out. Erratic's over, unfortunately, but Collected in Trades. And this is over, unfortunately, and this is over, unfortunately. So I need to find out about new books. So I'm counting on you. Thank you so much for watching. My game timed out. So, bummer. Oh, there's another book I didn't get. Forgot. So I had it on the screen for a reason. Good Boy didn't come out. It says it came out on the digital screen here, but it didn't. This is Source Point Press, so these small publishers in the Biden years, yeah, everyone's going bankrupt and the country's going to hell. And aren't you glad I ended this video on a high note? Oh, man. Thanks for watching.